welcome to another episode of Mizuma Conversations Artist Dialogues. I'm Siuli, and today I'm chatting with Iwan Effendi, an artist based in 𝘐𝘁𝘁, Indonesia. Hello, Iwan.
So, hi Siuli. It's great that Mizuma Gallery initiate this conversation, and hope you are well in Singapore.
Now, Iwan, I think many people, especially the audiences here in Singapore, know you for your puppet installations because that was the last body of work that you presented at Mizuma Gallery in Gillman Barracks. And rightly so as well, because you are also the puppet designer and co-artistic director for Papermoon Puppet Theatre. But we'll come back to this in a short while. For my first question, I would like to go back in time a little bit to talk about some of the painting works that you made back in 2011 and 2012. And when I look at these earlier paintings, I see that many of them have a very haunting and surrealistic quality. I also see quite a lot of references from other visual art sources such as comic books, graphic novels, and perhaps even Japanese anime. So Iwan, my first question, could you share with us a little bit more about these earlier works? What were your sources of inspiration, and what were some of the themes and ideas you were exploring in these works? And have these themes and ideas carried on to your later works as well?
So about the influences that I have is actually started from 2004 when me as a young artist can access internet easily during that time, so I can just grab anything I want during that period. And I'm just inspired by, comics and also character design, graffiti, pop surrealism, and like music and many other things. But during 2011 and 2012, it's quite important stage for me because that's the first time I realized that my painting practice and puppetry practice are cross each other. With the previous production called 𝘠𝘠𝘬𝘴 on 2010 that really combine everything that I have, everything that I experience in one production. And so during that period, like 2011 it's really different for me to see what I have done and what I will do next with my visual art practice and also my works in Papermoon. And I just realized that I just part of this artistic chain in puppetry. I just mix everything up in my practice, and for some reason I just believe that art is also the knife or like surgery scissor to observe the cultural or social phenomenon. And that bring me to use them eclectically to experiment with the theme that I'm working on later.
Great, thanks Iwan. Now for my second question, I read about an interview you did where you talked about a journey that you made to America. And you made a sort of personal discovery during this trip because upon encountering the art in America, you realized that what your work had been lacking up till then was a sense of local culture or context. Could you tell us more about what are these aspects of local culture and context that you have incorporated into your art making?
So first, the trip to US just made me realize when I experienced how the artistic influences in urban art that inspired my early practice are not only about young artist movement it's kind of lifestyle, but I found that some artists, they speak about quite sensitive topics and with a quite like in popular way during that period. So that things make me curious to experiment with the specific topic that I plan to work with, and the topics that I have, the context that I have, the experience that I have socially and culturally. So second is my trip to US with Ria during that time is to observe about puppetry in New York City, and that was winter on 2009 and 2010. And this trip led us to the curiosities about what we actually have in our puppetry tradition, like the cultural value and also the richness of the medium itself as an art form. And I found that Indonesian wayang is always mentioned always mentioned in the world puppetry history text. So, it can give me the feeling of, confident and proud about it, that we have these original roots to develop, not only in the exotic way to preserve it, but in the spirit to tell the story through puppetry. So I can feel that this puppetry can mix everything that I explore from the beginning of my career as an artist, like to tell such topic for a particular audience that I aim to. And with this thought, I just decide to try them on to the theme that I work with, and it's about our own history. So there is a project initiated by 𝘐𝘩𝘪𝘭𝘥 Forum in 2005, invited many artists in around my age about the grey history of 1965 tragedy in Indonesia. Because I just remember that I think in my generation it's not that really talk about. That project just opened many doors in my daily practice as Indonesian, as a young generation, as a young artist, and most importantly as a grandchildren of a man that got jailed because of those events. And it explained how my family are shaped. Because my grandfather is a dalang, he's a puppet master, but I never saw him perform. So he got jailed on 1966, I think, and out on 79. That's when I was born. I'm the closest grandchildren that he have because he attends the day I was born. He just taught me how to dance, how to draw, how to write in Javanese alphabet. But I never saw him perform like wayang personally. Since 2005, I just followed those, observation about my own family and that history. I just do many interview with many elderly about those events, and on 2010, I just decided to work with this theme together with Papermoon. So I got more involved in puppetry, make me curious to use what I artistically explore, and also together with the anxiety about my family history. And I always believe that the family history is always also the nation history.
Now, speaking of travel and being inspired by travel, I'm thinking back to a performance installation you presented sometime back in Singapore called Suara Muara, and you told me then that it was inspired by a trip to Lasem, an old port town in the north of Java. Have there been any journeys you have taken which have inspired your work? Besides Lasem, have there been any cities or places that left such indelible impressions on you that you have made work based on these experiences and memories?
Basically, I'm a studio-based artist. I usually work alone, like painter. But yeah, so I'm not that immediately inspired by places actually. But since in Papermoon I work a lot with Ria, and she can do really quick engage with particular stories in particular places, and get inspired and express it in the same time. So she helped me digest the thing that I experienced. I believe that journey can complete or trigger something for an artist to work. And also, yeah, you mentioned about the Lasem. So that's actually the biggest trip for quite big work that challenged by 𝘕𝘱𝘱 in 2013 to commission, and I create the installation for the facade, 𝘕𝘱𝘱 facade. And because the theme that 𝘕𝘱𝘱 gave me is about maritime culture, so yeah, the closest place that I think I can explore more is going to Lasem in that time. And then we just experience the beach, the rivers, and we create the installation after that. And that place keep us come back to Lasem. And for the second project that we did is actually, that's not project, but it's for Papermoon anniversary. So we knew from someone in Lasem that there is like a performance, but it's more like a ritual actually. And it called, there is a wayang. It's shaped like semar, and it called 𝘏𝑗𝘗𝘁. So yeah, we just visit there, and then we initiate the performance. We invite 𝘏𝑗𝘗𝘁 performance to bless our anniversary in that time. And yeah, it's quite interesting that we have another kind of puppetry in Java. And then those experience makes us to develop more and make story, and that present in Singapore Museum that you curated for Imaginarium.
Now, while much of your work may appear very charming, fantastical, and innocent and childlike, a lot of it actually deals with very difficult and complex issues such as death and loss, and even violent episodes in history. I would say it's quite similar to some of Papermoon Puppet Theatre's productions. How do you, as an artist, deal with these difficult issues?
So it started from the early of Papermoon. Because Papermoon itself, we started from like a library for children in the beginning, and Ria has a lot of like children book illustration collection. And as long as we know in that time, is puppetry is only for children, so we start from that path. But then we realized that this medium can do many things. It can reach anyone in a different way. We always start with the audiences. So we define the audiences. That will be the first thing we will decide. So the shape and idiom will go after that. And also the approach, how we approach the topic, something like that. Like 𝘬𝘪𝘭𝘥 performance, that's about the 1965 history. We decide to speak about the 65 history to the younger audience, like below us, the age below us. And then we decide the storyline, like we make as simple as possible, and also because it's such a quite heavy topic, and you know, like during that period, like art and politics is over top. I mean, after Soeharto, like you know, like many artists do the politic things. So then, like many younger generation, like really, you know, resistance about that. After we define the audiences, then we decide the storyline and start this, and I start to design the look of the puppets. So what kind of puppet that can trap them into this kind of topics. So yeah, that's actually I think that's the beauty of puppetry. I mean, you just believe with like object that become alive and tell story. But in the beginning, you don't have any, you know, association with these things, and also that thing is, there is no intention of puppet, so it's just object. But when it become alive and, you know, like live together on stage and tell the story, then, you know, like gradually you will feel something about it. And for us, that's quite effective. So I think art can do such thing like twisted association of topics or theme or sign, and you know, but it depends on how we define the audiences that we want to talk to.
Thank you so much for your time, Iwan, and for sharing your thoughts with us. Now I have one last question for you, and this is probably the most important question of all. Which one is your favorite durian?
Oh, it is. It is the most important question. Musang King is my favorite right now. I haven't tried another one.